Want to know the recipe for a delicious potato dish that only has 3 ingredients and it's really easy? Let's make potatoes baked in cream. Think of that as the posh relative of scallop potatoes. So if you love those, but know that they can be finicky, making a different sauce, thickening it with flour, this is not that. This is so dead easy. Let's show you how to do it. Or let me show you how to do it. You're just going to peel potatoes. In this case, I'm using russets. They're one of my favorites, but there's lots that work. I like the starchy content of them. You want the starch in that potato because that's what's going to help bind or glue this dish together. There's only 3 ingredients, and those ingredients are potatoes, cream, and salt. This is my favorite vegetable peeler, by the way. It's also really inexpensive. It's by Kuhn Rikon, and it costs about $5 or less. If you need to do this part ahead, you can soak them in water, but do so whole because we want to maintain the starch that's inside of the potato. So because this dish is pretty rich, it's one that you serve a small portion. When you have something that's rich and decadent, serve a smaller amount. You want people to be craving just a little bit more. That's how you keep it in balance with whatever the rest of the meal is. So I've got a shallow, looks like it's maybe a little more than a 1-inch deep. This is just cast iron, but any low-sided like casserole or gratin dish will work. A pie tin would work, a skillet, something like that. But we don't want it to be more than about 1-inch thick. So kind of thin, and then you'll see. So to a mixing bowl, we're guessing a little bit here because we're not exactly sure how much potato we have, but I'm guessing that we're going to need about 1.5 cups of cream, and this will be enough to feed at least 6 people. Pour that into a mixing bowl. We might need a tiny bit more. We might need a tiny bit less. Because it's so few ingredients, we kind of have to season it this way. And now salt. You're going to salt it to what you think is correct, but we're going to check it by tasting it. And it should be at least as salty as the ocean. Just a nice, savory, salty taste. I'm using Diamond Crystal Kosher salt. So it looks like I'm using a lot, but because this salt doesn't have any other ingredients in it, they press it into these flakes so that it doesn't clump or stick together. So actually, because it's so fluffy, when you see chefs using it and it looks like they're dumping in a ton of salt, it's actually half as much salt if you're using another kind. Like if you're using the Morton one out of the blue can that you shake it out like that, that's twice as salty as this stuff. So don't come for me in the comments and say we're oversalting the food. We're not. It's just a better salt. So we're going to give that a little whisk. And then really important to taste it here. It should be nice and salty because it's going to be going over bland potatoes that have no seasoning at all. We're close. Let's do just a little bit more. Not that much. So if you were using iodized, that'd be about 1/4 teaspoon, maybe a little less. Give that another taste. There we go. So now here's where we get into maybe a little bit of specialized equipment that I think you should have. If you love cooking, you deserve to have great tools. Why? Because they make the job so easy. So this is a mandolin. My favorite kind are the Japanese style that are made out of plastic. France makes beautiful ones that are made out of stainless. They're gorgeous, but to me, they're a little over-engineered, a little clunky, and really expensive. So this is my favorite kind. And to adjust the thickness on this, you're just going to turn this dial. And so it's a little bit of a guessing game. I think the last thing I sliced with this was cucumbers, and I wanted them paper thin. For these potatoes, I don't want them quite that thin. So get where it's locked in with that wheel. And I think I'm going to bump it up just a little bit thicker than that. And then to protect your fingers against this really sharp blade, I mean, that's all a knife, right? So the best thing to do is be careful. And so what we do is use a cutting glove like this. You can buy these online from everything. I'm not sure exactly what material it is. They never sell them as cut proof. It's always cut resistant because if you really hack through, you could hack through most things. They make them out of Kevlar that are really safe. But for anything where you could lose a bunch of skin, because this will take off skin exactly like it would the piece of potato. It'll be that thick and everything. And it happens so fast. I just wouldn't do it. I don't recommend it. I like this, but then to keep this clean, your cutting glove, so it doesn't get all gross from touching wet food and all the different foods that you might use on it, cover that with a kitchen glove. So now the glove underneath is going to stay clean. I'll grab a potato. And I'm just going to slice it. Actually, let me do one in my hand to make sure I like this thickness. I'll do a couple. So we're looking like that. And it's pliable. It's not so thick that it's not pliable. To me, that looks exactly right. Honey, how thick is that? 1/8 of an inch?
Yeah, 1/8 of an inch.
Okay. So I think we're ready to go. So I like that this one has a little, what is that called?
Groove.
A little groove.
Notch.
That can, a notch, yeah, that can sit in your cutting board and kind of hold it securely. Because the action is that you're going to be pushing against it. So I like that little feature that it has. So there's the 3 little testers. Drop those down in. You want to grate these potatoes directly over the salty cream that we just made. So this is how easy it is. It's much faster than a knife. It's totally precise. Once you get to the smaller end like this, I open up my hand flat. And remember, we got that cutting glove, so I feel very secure doing this. Once you're really close to the end, go slower. Or you could even skip that little nub. You could actually cut it with a knife if you wanted to too. So let's do another one. Let's see how easy it makes it. The best chef in the world will tell you they can't cut potatoes consistently this fast and this evenly, even if they're really great with a knife. Every good restaurant uses these. So as soon as your potatoes are done, and this was 3 potatoes, but just cover them completely. And what this is doing is it's pulling off all the surface starch of the potato and depositing it in the cream. So that's going to thicken this into the most delightful, luxurious, almost like you'd made a sauce. So now just into your dish. Like I said, you might not need all of this, but I think we're going to be pretty close. Oops, and you don't need to butter this dish at all. There's enough fat in the cream that you just won't need it. Okay. So I think we're really in a good way. I'm going to go ahead and pour all of this in. And then what you want to do is push down to make them in an even layer. And what you need to see is that the cream is covering the potatoes by about at least 50%. And you definitely want a layer of cream that's floating on top of them so they can't oxidize and turn brown. And I'm going to call that exactly good. So 3 potatoes, 1.5 cups of cream, and salt to taste. That's all the ingredients that you got. So this is going to go into a 400-degree oven for about 30 minutes, or another sign that it's done would be to take a fork and pierce through, and you should feel no resistance from the potatoes. If you were to do that now, you would definitely feel the resistance because they're raw. And another cue would be that it's all brown and bubbly all over, and it smells like heaven. So into the oven it goes. So now we just have to wait for it to cool a little bit until I take a bite. It's a lovely dish. Serve this alongside a roasted meat, something that's not too fatty, maybe a nice salad that has a lot of vinaigrette acidity to cut through that richness. But just make it just a small serving and your guests are going to be blown away. If you're looking for that dish that'll set you apart where people are just blown away and you just quietly serve them the scalloped potatoes, when they put a bite in their mouth, their eyes are going to go wide and they're going to ask you, what is this? Where did you get that recipe?
Thank you. Wow.
I know I'm going to burn myself. Chit, 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 chit. Worth it. The purest potato taste, that perfect balance of salt, and then that richness that comes from cream, the simpleness of it, just make them. Let's